So Plater is a very well-known add-on. It's no secret that it looks tons better than the default Blizzard nameplates, but not many people use Plater to its maximum potential. And that is really what this video is about. Essentially just a deep dive into why I truly believe you need a solid, detailed Plater profile to succeed in Mythic Plus. Essentially what I do at the start of every dungeon tier since Shadowlands is I go through every dungeon on a normal level. I open up MDT, walk through the whole place, and change the mob names, colors, and sizes according to what is important to kick and stun and prioritize and dodge, etc. Importantly, I will note that my specific Plater profile and scripts are for subs only on Twitch or subs in Discord because I worked very hard on setting this all up. It took many, many days and many rewrites, but I will walk through how I did this, so if you want to do it yourself, you are welcome to. Now, of course, there are a lot of high-end players who do not recolor and rename mobs. And that is good on them. Honestly, I don't get why they don't opt into making their lives easier, but it is their choice. The thing is, having a clear visual in your peripheral or direct vision is a massive benefit to the success of kicking mobs, stunning them, doing priority damage, dodging mechanics, and just generally having good awareness. So as you can see here, this is a typical pull of Algathar Bug Room, and there are dozens and dozens of mobs being pulled in one pull. So it's pretty chaotic. There are some mobs here that you don't need to see at all because they don't matter, they don't do a single important thing, and those are the little flowers. And then there are some mobs, like the big flowers and the bugs, the skitterflies, that are important. So as you see here, I have renamed and recolored the important mobs to be distinguishable from each other, and I have made the little mobs named ... and I kept them regular because you really don't need to see them or know if they're still alive. Like, they don't matter at all. You just want to be able to easily target the things that matter when you're target swapping. So how do you set this up? Well, it's pretty simple. You go into Plater, you go to NPC colors and names, and you type in the name of a mob that you want to change. And let's do, for example, the skitterflies that we just saw. And here I, as you can see, renamed it to Stank Bug. You can rename it to whatever you want. I recolored it to pink because generally for me, pink means this is a prio mob. It's very important. And you have to make sure when you type a name that you hit enter or else it won't save. So it's very, very simple. And sometimes this can be glitchy when you're searching mobs. They won't show up. Generally, what works for me is just reloading my UI. Plater has a lot of data in it, so sometimes it just does not register what you're trying to do. You can also do this with spell casts. For example, in Court of Stars, I personally really don't care to see that Failing Strike is popping up when a mob is doing a frontal. That's not very helpful, especially if you're new to dungeons and you're trying to learn them. Instead, I just rename that to frontal so I can clearly see in big letters what is happening on my screen amidst the chaotic pulls. And again, it's very simple. You just go to cast colors and names. You type in, I think the mob's name is Guardian, right? No. Well, either way, you can type in the mob name or the mob cast, and here, again, you have to hit enter after you rename it, but as you can see, there are some mobs here that I've renamed their casts to heal, AoE, silence. I mean, things that are just like really simple to understand what they are, especially when a mob has multiple mechanics. This is really helpful. So this is my favorite one personally, because it's another huge benefit of Plater that people just don't know about often because it's not a natural function of the add-on, and instead you have to import a script to even make it an option, and that is resizing the actual nameplates of mobs. So for instance, let's take this first pull of Ruby. There are so many important mobs here, primarily the kickable ones and the ones that cast the big AoE damage. And those I have kept large because you actually need to see what they are doing. But I just recolored and renamed them so I can still distinguish what is what and what's a kick and what's the guy that needs to be stopped. The rest of the mobs are pretty irrelevant here, and they don't need to be so big in this already chaotic clump of mobs that need special attention. So using this script, I search up the ID of the mob, I copy it, I go to the correct script and just add the mob ID itself to the list of other mobs that I have made small, and I will show you how that works right now. So in order to get this script, you need to import it into Plater, and I linked it below in this video. It's called Specific Nameplate Resize Scaling, I think. And you import it right here, and once you've done that, you will see this list of triggers. And what you have to do is go to NPC colors and names, type a mob in, for example, do the Skitterfly again, copy this ID, I'm gonna copy it, and then go back to scripting, back to this specific one, and then in here you're just gonna copy and then add it. I'm not gonna add it because I don't want to make them small. But then you will see that mob ID populate at the very end, and essentially this whole list is just mobs from Shadowlands and Dragonflight that I have made small. So if you ever want to revert this, you just do the same thing. You search up an ID, and then you have to write it down or remember it, and then go in here and try to find that exact ID and then just exit out, and that way the mob will be big again. So it's very easy. Again, if you want to do that yourself, you can, but I've done it for every single dungeon, so if you want my script, I have that available separately. So now on to buff and debuff tracking. Everyone knows it's very important to track your buffs on mob nameplates. However, there are just so many unimportant buffs that come with Plater when you first install it, and debuffs as well, that you just don't need to clutter your screen with. For instance, you don't need to see, for Rogue specifically, your poison proc on a nameplate. Your poison will either proc or it won't. There's nothing you can do about it, and it's not going to affect your gameplay. But something like Between the Eyes you want to keep, because that is important to see and to know. And a side note about Between the Eyes, I have a script in Plater that recolors the mob frame whenever Between the Eyes is on my target. It's right here, so I can easily see what my prio mob is. So to do this buff and debuff tracking efficiently, you go into buff tracking section of Plater, and then you search up a spell or an ID of it that you don't want to track, or you do want to track that's not being tracked, and you enter, and then you'll see it populate into one of these columns. For Outlaw, I recommend blacklisting these spells that I have blacklisted because you really don't need to see them. I mean, a lot of these are from older expansions, so you can just ignore them obviously, but like Pistol Shot, you don't need to see. You don't need to see poisons of any kind. You don't need to see Find Weakness, because you're essentially always, you're having so much uptime on it that you don't really need to play around that. Yeah. So as you can see, there's a lot of cool things you can do in Plater, like alter how much or how little nameplates move around when the tank kites. You can change the font and size of mob names and casts. You can do so much in here. And again, you can do this all yourself, but I genuinely think that my Plater is almost perfectly catered to Mythic Plus. I'm very proud of it. I spent many days and hours setting up every little thing in here to be ideal. So if you want the whole thing, or even just certain scripts like the colors, names, or the resizing, or just the Between the Eyes script, you can find it all in my Discord, but it is restricted to subs, either in the Discord or on Twitch. I updated my profile, and I update my profile and script every tier with every new dungeon that comes out. So it's a reliable thing to look forward to every single tier, and I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that everybody tries out these functions in Plater for themselves, or just tries out Plater in general for the first time. Either way, it will change your life. I promise.